Oh, yeah.
All right, so good morning. We started working on a prospecting practice, critical thinking challenge, and I said I would give you time today to finish that up. How many of you need some time today to finish that? Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you 15 minutes to finish the prospecting so that you don't have to work on it outside of class, or in theory you can get this done in the amount of time. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do something called the win room. This is an idea I got at Gartner. So Gartner is one of the companies that sponsors one of the sales competitions this year. They're sponsoring the National Collegiate Sales Competition. And what they do with their employees and trainees is they have what's called a win room, where the salesperson will go in and have other salespeople and a senior salesperson in a conference room, and they'll tell about the prospect that maybe they're having a hard time getting in contact with, and come up with ideas for how to reach out and make sure that you're successful in getting that contact and that prospect. And then they also have a win room for dealing with issues where you've made contact but you haven't been able to close the deal, and generating ideas. So we're going to pretend that we're doing a win room, and all of your colleagues are going to be here helping you try to figure out what's the best way to figure out what this prospect is, come up with ideas. And if you participate, for each idea that you generate for your colleagues today, I will give you 1 bonus point for the next thing. So it behooves you to pay attention in class to what they're saying as they present, and then you can get 1 bonus point for each idea generation that you come up with on how they can go about finding out what the lead's social style is. Maybe if they think that they have a different social style based on the factual pattern that you've given them, and then we will discuss it. So I'm going to give you 15 minutes now to get in your groups and work on the prospecting, and then we will have the win room. So each group will get up and all of you will present this time for this one in terms of idea generation. All right? So that's what we're going to do this morning. All right. So what we're going to do is, in order to sort of remember your number, in order to make it random so that not all the same groups go first, second, third, or last, I'm just going to sort of switch it up. So you guys will be first, you guys will be second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. All right? So number 1 wants to come up and present. You all remember that you can generate ideas to help them be successful in approaching this lead, and that'll be worth bonus points.
All right, so the company that we chose to target was BC Clark's Jewelers.
You all need to get up there so you can answer questions. Everyone.
They're just gonna
That way I make sure that everybody at least once has, other than their sales presentation. Okay?
Okay, so yeah, we chose BC Clark's Jewelers, local company here in Oklahoma City. They're locally owned since 1982. The social style.
Since 1982?
1892, sorry.
1892.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And the social style that we thought they had was amiable.
Well, wait a minute. First of all, who did you choose as your...
Coleman Clark.
Coleman Clark, okay.
He's also part of the family that...
All right, how did you find out that Coleman is the one? I think you're right, by the way. I have an account there, so this is a business I'm well familiar with. How did you...
We just searched the management on their website.
Okay.
For management.
And
said that's the one that you should contact if you have any, like prospecting.
so, what's his position?
As senior manager / owner.
Okay, all right, so he's a senior manager / owner. All right.
And then
We decided they were more of the amiable type of company, because they're known for, obviously their Christmas jingle, the BC Clark's anniversary sale. I'm not going to sing it for you, but because you wouldn't want to hear me singing, but they're loyal, they're locally owned, they've been running their own business, and they're the oldest owned jeweler in Oklahoma. They've obviously done really well for themselves just by, presenting themselves as friendly, family-oriented people. And they're personable, they're all about the history of the company,
So yeah, we couldn't decide if they're believers or survivors, because they're obviously friendly, locally owned, value consistency.
What about the guy that you're targeting specifically? Why do you think I can tell you that jewelry store is not gonna be a survivor. Right, I mean, a jewelry store owner is probably not gonna be a survivor, particularly not that jewelry store. Now, maybe, actually, nobody who owns a jewelry store is gonna be a survivor. Now, there are businesses that may be in survival mode because they're going bankrupt, but the owner themselves, I mean, survivors are just not, they're not gonna be business owners. So it would be highly unlikely. All right, so with regard to Coleman himself, why did you think that he was an amiable?
Probably because he's part of the family that, began the whole company, and he has roots deep within the company, and probably pretty loyal to it, and, cares a lot about it and its well-being, so.
Kind of like grow up with that.
Okay.
'Cause, I mean, they're in the third and fourth generation right now with who's owning the company. So, I mean, we go into a job, we're 20 years old and we start, but like he's probably been learning about this stuff since he was a little kid, because that's what he's been around.
Okay, that's a good insight. Yes, he is. I mean, all of the people that are involved with it that have the name Clark are obviously grew up in that business. Okay, so I think that's a good insight. What do you all think?
Yep.
Yep is not gonna get you bonus points.
Agree.
Yep. Nobody has any suggestions?
I would also think that they would be a little bit.
Okay, go ahead, right here.
I would also think that they would be a little bit of like the driver aspect, wouldn't
Right.
they?
Because they have, kept going, obviously stayed up with the latest, whatever.
Yeah, with the latest
news.
trends, and then they need to be very detail oriented and make
Right.
sure that whenever they work with other, like, I don't know, diamonds, it's very specific, right, and gold and whatnot, so that's what I would expect.
Okay, so you're basing your thing off of the type of product, you think that would
Yeah.
be? You think the type of product that the individual chooses to sell, it would influence what kind of person they are? What kind of personality style they are?
Yeah,
Okay,
Kind of.
I think that's obviously maybe a valuable insight in that people go into industries that they tend to believe in, hopefully. If you're going to be successful in sales, one of the things we'll talk about next time is, being successful in sales. And so we sort of flip the chapters, and I think that's right. I think a lot of people that are not successful go into stuff that they just think, well, I can sell anything, and they don't necessarily believe in the product. And so I think that what you go into can be an indicator of that. My sister is a vice president for Boeing. Boeing is not gonna be an amiable company. I mean, it's gonna be, hard-hitting. She's selling Boeing's, well, it's the one that's gonna replace the 747. And so it's fast-paced, it's traveling all over the world, and she's not gonna be an amiable, and I can tell you she's not an amiable. And Boeing is not full of amiable people. I do think that your insight on the fact that you think that because they are family-owned and they're selling in the B2C area, that may be more apropos, the amiable style. Because people don't necessarily want to be pressured when they go in to buy jewelry. Who else had some, yes?
So like, how do their characteristics fit in with Paycom's product? Like, do you think because they're so loyal that they wouldn't be willing to open up and let a new company, especially a newer company like Paycom, take over a big portion of their workload? Like,
That's something we also discussed with whenever we were doing the Madden thing. We said that we need to increase the desire, somehow we have to come across them to increase their desire, because, they have been functioning on their own for however long they have been. So if Paycom were to, potentially see them as a prospect, they would have to really figure out a way to, increase their desire and find a need as well for the company.
I think that's also good insight in that companies that have been around as long as that one has, they probably have a set way of doing it, and you're comfortable with the way you're doing it, so why would you change? And that's something that you are gonna have to, like, we've done it this way forever. If it ain't broke, don't
Right,
fix
don't
it.
Mhm.
So I think that's probably pretty valuable insight. And I will tell you, just because I have experience with them, obviously, I have an account there, and I can remember up until about 5 years ago, when I would go in to make payments on my account, they had these old green screen computers that they were still
Really?
using.
Oh,
Yes.
so-
So they were still using a very ancient, what we would call, what is that called? Anybody know?
Dial-up?
Yeah, it's called what though? What kind of software? It's called a legacy system.
Oh, fits its
So.
name.
Huh?
Isn't it fits its name?
Yeah, it's a legacy system. All right, very good. Group number 2. Let me just make sure I did get that camcorder back on.
So the environment is aiming for innovative. Builds strong relationships and stuff.
Yeah.
Our company is Sky Zone Indoor Trampoline Park. They have a location here in Edmond, it's called Sky Zone Edmond. Our target is Ed Calise. He is the general manager there and also a part owner, or the majority owner. Ed is married, has 3 kids. He runs the company off paper checks. Everyone gets paid by paper checks that you have to go pick up personally, that he stays at the store to hand to you. So we deemed him a thinker, and the connection with Paycom would be to kind of influence him to go into electronic checking and direct deposit and things like that. A few of the things that we felt would further encourage him to switch over is the fact that he has 25 plus employees, so he has to write out 25 paper checks and go get them like officiated and everything else every pay period. Like today, we don't get paid until 10 a.m. because he has to wait for them to be mailed in. It would save him time, it would save him questions. Every time we get a new employee, they're asking questions when we get paid, things like that. So this would just help him. And as far as the Madden thing, a few of the things we discussed is Ed does have the money to switch to Paycom. Ed is one of those people who kind of just likes to help people out. He's not very closed in with his money. He knows how to handle it. He knows how to talk to people. So if we would be able to talk to him and let him understand that he can afford this, that it's something that would further his company and further his hiring and things like that, then he would be more open to switching to Paycom.
Okay. So how did you choose this company?
Me? No. I work at Sky Zone, so
You worked there, so you had inside knowledge. Okay, well, using your, that's not a bad, I didn't tell you a priori that you could not use a company that you all worked for. I said you couldn't use something in the Oklahoma City area, or in the Oklahoma City proper. You could use a metro, something outside that was not Oklahoma City. So I think that's, one of the things is that when you go into business, you should remember to kind of cultivate, that don't forget the people that maybe you left. And I did talk about that usually when you leave a job, you leave friends behind and you don't necessarily stay friends with them. And that may be a rich source of future prospects for you. And so I don't think that's a bad thing. What did you do to ascertain, so you obviously know something about him, so you had personal knowledge into how many kids he had and things like that. Why is that relevant to his business decision?
For most people, for a lot of people, how you treat your family is kind of how you treat your business. Most people look at their business as a kid, which Ed does. Like he would do anything for the job, and he's very family oriented, and he loves people. So he kind of treats Sky Zone and all the kids at Sky Zone and all the workers like we're his family.
Okay.
So I felt like that would be a really good connection to be able to talk to him as if I was talking to him about one of his kids being born or something.
I also think it plays in that if you have a family, he's going to really consider every decision he's making in the business, because if he goes under, he can't provide for his family. So he's going to really think about everything and make sure he's making like a smart decision.
Okay, I think that's a good insight, that, yeah, it's a small business, they're probably going to treat it like, this is the lifeblood of their, entire existential being, if you invest in something like that, I think that's probably a good insight. What else did you do to figure out what his social style was?
One of the things she mentioned about Ed is that Ed does not use technology. He's very old school. He had hired someone to handle all the technology of the business. So I think that would be one of our biggest obstacles, selling to him, is convincing him that this person that he hired can learn this really fast.
Okay, so that's an interesting observation.
Yeah.
He doesn't use technology, but he hired somebody to do
Our
technology.
operations manager, her name is Sharon, she's the one who takes care of everything in technology. Like yesterday, she literally spent an entire shift updating all of our computers to the new version of Centeridge, which is what we use right now for like clocking in and things like that, and handling the hours, and it was very tedious on her. So she's trying to teach someone else to learn how to do this hard job for her, when if they would just switch to Paycom, it would be a lot easier for everybody.
Okay, all right, I think that's good. So he's not opposed to technology, he just doesn't use it. So is he gonna be the actual decision maker, probably?
So he's the actual one. He's the one that says, okay, I think that sounds like a good deal. Sharon, you can go ahead and start doing this. So she can't do anything until he approves it.
But
So
she's certainly a
under
center of
his-
influence in that.
Excuse me?
She's certainly a center of influence in that
Yes.
decision.
So if we could convince her first, like bring it up to her and get her on our side too, and then go to him as well and be like, well, this would be easier for Sharon to learn as well. So not only would you be able to understand the technology, but Sharon can understand it easier as well. So in that way, there's no trip ups. Everybody knows what they're doing.
Okay. Do you all have any suggestions? Okay, all right, very good. I would have also come up with, if it were me, I would have come up with the social style of the person that you think is influencing. So I would have done
Oh,
Sharon as well.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean, I would have thought about that as well. Because you're obviously gonna have to talk to her
Yeah.
and get her on board. Okay, good. Number 3.
All right, we decided to do a lawn care company called All Green. It's actually a friend's dad that owns the company, so I'm pretty familiar with him. I know that he does a lot of contracting work, and so I thought that Paycom would be helpful to use their, you know, for pay periods and stuff. You're having to deal with a lot of contract workers and especially whenever you're like, I'm trying to think of how to say it, going out and finding new prospects for the business. So you're like picking up new lawns and commercial companies and stuff like that. We decided that he was going to be an achiever.
Okay, so who's the target?
His
then?
name's Noel Staten. He's the owner of the company.
Noel what?
Noel Staten, S-T-A-T. But he basically makes all the decisions for the company. He's been doing it for about 10 years now. Yeah, you guys got anything to say?
Well, we decided his social style was a driver because he is like very family oriented. He's the one that's gonna make all the decisions by himself. He doesn't have like a number 2, it's literally just him. And like he was telling us, he's got like a family, so once again, it is his baby, this company. So he's gonna make decisions in regard to his family as well as the company itself.
So why did you decide he was a driver? What made you decide that?
He's from a small town in Oklahoma. He told me that he was, we always talk about business and stuff. My dad's in the lawn care business as well. But he started the company from the ground up, went and bought 3,000 lawns from a different company, and so we just kind of decided that he was a driver because he decided to make the decision and grow the company into something bigger outside of that.
When he made that initial investment, he was taking a risk,
Yeah.
and he was confident in his ability to expand the business and go off that. And so I believe he said that his business has almost tripled at this point. So his
Just in the
investment,
last year, it's already tripled. So.
Yeah.
yeah, so his investment is successful, and he's obviously choosing this company that's very important to him, and he's been very, he's good at managing it, but now that it's getting so big, it may be time for some help from people.
Yeah.
And we went through the data and we realized that he is very eligible to adopt Paycom, because he definitely has the money, because his business just tripled.
Mhm.
And, he's very approachable, he's still a small business person, and you'd have to be prepared, but he would be approachable about it. He has the desire, he should, because he's getting more employees and his business is growing, but they're still sticking to a traditional way of paying. He is the decision maker, definitely, he'd be the only one to make the decision, and he is eligible, and he does probably need it because the business is good.
Okay, so one of the things that you mentioned in this that I don't know if you thought about as a possibility, so when you think about this again, think about how you can integrate all of this stuff together. You are just looking at payroll services, and that's all I told you to look at, and that's fine, but you said he has a lot of contract laborers, is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay, so one of the things that you might use, and I can't remember if Paycom does this, but I'm pretty sure that they do, is they also have a compliance section
Yeah.
to make sure that you're complying. That's one of the things that ADP does, is make sure that you're complying. So a lot of times, you think you can hire somebody as a contract laborer, and it turns out that you can't. And one of the things that HR companies like ADP and Paycom can help with is understanding those kinds of compliance issues and keeping you out of trouble with the law, and that could be a value added, something that you could also talk to them about.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah, since a lot of like landscaping companies do use international labor, I know that it is very risky sometimes,
Yeah.
and it's easily to be fined, and it gets expensive. For like, I work at a bank, and I know, for example, one of our customers was fined $10,000 because his foreman didn't have a legitimate working visa.
Uh-huh.
And so if Paycom did offer those services, I believe it would be very valuable to this company if they're able to authenticate and everything, because that is a really good source of labor. And if it's all legal, then I think Paycom would be very, very good for the company.
Okay, all right. Does anybody else in the win room have suggestions? Okay, good. Number 4.
I'll add some questions to it.
Okay, so the store that we chose is a boutique located in Nichols Hills, and it is called Gil's Denim Bar, and it is owned by Gil Mitchell, and it has been since 1987. And they are just a small boutique in Nichols Hills, and they sell denim, clothing, and items such as that. And we decided that he is more analytical, and he really wants to know how things work and how it's going to benefit him. And we also think that he is a thinker, so he's going to think things over. And so,
so the way we're going to sell him Paycom, since he isn't analytical, we have to be very straightforward, give him very detailed, like how the program works. He does also will ask a lot of questions on how, so we have to give him numbers, just be very straightforward. He's also very serious and persistent.
How did you choose this prospect?
I used to work at one of his boutiques, actually.
Okay, so it's a former employer of yours.
Yes.
And how did you decide that he was an analytical?
Because he is definitely the numbers guy. Like, he wants to know how things work, he wants to know how it's going to benefit him, and he is also very persistent, and he's very set on what he wants and how he wants it to be.
And you know that from?
Just from working there and the way that he runs the business. The managers of the stores are more, I would say, amiable, and they're more like friendly, but he's very business minded, so that's why he's in charge, obviously.
Okay, so he has just one store?
He has 2.
2 stores. Okay, so the managers you said are more amiable.
Yes.
And you think that they're centers of influence in this?
Yes, I did, but the other one that the manager of this specific store is Jamisa, and she, I think, is analytical as well, but because she does the buying for the store. But I would also say she's more amiable just because she is a friendly face whenever you walk in the store. So I think there's 2 sides to her.
Okay, so you think she has a primary and then a secondary social style? is what you're
Yes, I
saying.
do.
Okay, most people have a primary and a secondary. How many employees do they have?
10 to 12.
10 to 12, okay. And what else did you look at to determine, besides your own personal knowledge of this, to figure out what kinds of social styles they might have?
Well, we didn't really do that.
Didn't
to
really
be
do that.
honest. I just knew them from like my personal experience, so.
Okay, all right. Do you guys have any suggestions? No?
Do they have like enough employees, you think, to utilize Paycom?
Well, he owns 2 separate boutiques and each have about 10 to 12 employees in each, so I think if we sold him on one, then we could sell him on the other. And
Okay.
there is already a program that is in place, but it's not the best program in my personal opinion, so I think Paycom would probably be cheaper
So
and
they're
more
already
efficient.
using electronics. So
Yes, they're not afraid
familiar
of
with that.
technology, so
Okay.
they're familiar with that.
So what are his other, what are his other, so he has 4,
No, he has 2.
2,
I used to work in the lingerie store, which is one of his boutiques as well, and then Gil's is his other boutique.
okay. So there's just 2, and there's a total of how many employees?
It would probably be about 24 altogether.
Between the 2
Yes.
stores? Okay, all right. Any other suggestions or comments? Okay. Number 5.
So target company is the textbook broker in Edmond.
It's what?
Textbook broker in
Textbook?
Textbook broker.
Okay,
And the decision maker for this textbook broker is John Beecher. He is the owner and textbook broker. They selling book and they have book for students to rent and professors to rent and buy. And they already open for 30 years since 2004.
okay. How did you figure out who the owner was?
We went on the textbook broker's website about us, and then it said that John Beecher was the owner.
Okay,
I also found him on LinkedIn, and he had on there that he was a manager for 13 years.
okay. All right, so you actually used social media to do something. What did you find out based on social media?
Well, on LinkedIn, we saw that he had graduated from University of Central Arkansas.
Uh-huh,
He studied marketing there, and for his experience, all he had was that he was manager of the bookstore for 13 years, so I think that's mostly what he's done.
okay. All right, so could you glean any other insights from the LinkedIn? What did you say a social style was?
He's a driver. Defining the goals on this website. So this is a goal-oriented person,
Okay,
and also he's a family-oriented. So and then he actually has values for technology. So he actually cares for new stuff to improve their company.
okay.
And I think he's committed to both. He's been committed to his company for 13 years.
All right, so he's been there for 13 years, so you know that, that's good. And, I forgot what I was gonna ask.
Does he only have this one store, or there
No,
are
there's
multiple locations, or?
There's multiple, but I think each has its own owner.
Okay,
Because
so you'd be talking to them, or?
to the owner of the
Of
Edmond
each
textbook
personal,
broker
yeah,
store.
okay.
So is it a franchise?
It's like a franchise.
Okay, so it's a franchise. Could that present problems in terms of if it's a franchise, the franchisor may have their own sort of system? So if you buy a McDonald's, for example, you don't have a lot of control over how you use your, they have an integrated system for all sort of aspects of it, and it's in order to maintain quality control. So could that present a problem in trying to sell them on Paycom?
I'm not sure if they are like a franchise, because the only stores that I know of are the ones for UCO, and then they have one at OCCC as well. But I did notice when I went on their website, that one has its own website, and this one has its own website. So I'm not sure exactly how
And they're
connected
not,
they are.
they're not linked.
They're linked from the general website, but when you click on the admin one, it'll take you to another site.
Okay.
And so they are connected in some way, I'm just not sure how connected they are.
And you couldn't find, did you do research to see if there was an owner that was separate for that one, or if it went back to the same person?
For the road trip one,
Yeah,
we didn't look at their website.
why not?
That's a good question.
Don't you think that's something you might want to know?
I feel that they're their own store, based on what, like, I saw them having their own website, and it says he's the owner of the admin store.
And so he didn't indicate that he owned both stores, that's.
Right.
Okay. You think you should have done more research to figure out on the other one?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Any questions from the group, comments? No? All right, very good. Number 6. All right, go ahead.
Article, we chose Innovative Healthcare. It's located in Edmond. They're basically about billing, coding, and revenue and the cycle management. So we figured Paycom would be perfect for them because Paycom is basically about software solutions and helps companies manage complete employment life cycle. The manager there is Ron Decker. We believe his social style is amiable because the whole company believes that they need to have a strong relationship with the clients, and have a full understanding of the clients, so.
Okay, so how did you figure out that Ron was the decision maker?
I work there, and my mom works there. She's worked there longer than I have, and I recently started working there.
Okay.
And so he's the CEO, and he pretty much oversees everything. We have 4 different people that run the company per se. So he's the CEO, my mom is the COO, Jeff Price is our CFO, and Rick Kleehammer is kind of another COO. And they all make the decisions together. And I would say Ron is the driver of them, but he's also analytical. My mom is definitely a driver. She's very hard-headed, and once she decides she wants to do something, she does it. I say Jeff is more analytical, and then Rick is also very analytical. So they're pretty much spread out throughout all of the social styles. When it comes down to it, Ron will make the final decision. But Paycom was actually helpful. We didn't use it for a long time, and now we just recently started using it so we can do online clock in, because they have an app so you can get on your phone easily, clock in, clock out, and they have direct deposit, so you don't have to have like checks in hand now and then go to the bank and deposit. So it's been very helpful to us.
Okay, so you actually have experience with Paycom. One of the things, how do you control, and one of the objections you might have is how do you control people from clocking in and clocking out?
We actually had a problem with that.
When they're not there.
Yeah, we had a problem with that about a month ago, and they were fired from it because we have cameras everywhere, so we know exactly when you get there, exactly when you leave, and if there's ever a discrepancy, you get talked to, and then if not, and if they can't find a reason, then you're fired.
Okay, so what did you look at besides your personal knowledge to determine the social style of the CEO?
I went on the website. I just basically looked at what they were about.
Okay.
Like I said, they're mainly about building relationships. I understand that Annabelle is respectful and supportive and willing.
Okay.
So I mean, to build a good relationship, you have to be respectful.
So you gleaned this just based on the website themselves and sort of the feel of the website, and based on that, you sort of bootstrapped that into a personality type on the owner. Is that what you're saying? Okay. All right. I think that's probably not a bad way of doing it, but what are the chances that the owner actually developed the website themselves?
0. Well, he has a hand. He had a hand in it, but I said Jeff is our IT guy, so he went in, but it was more of a, pretty much a group effort for everything they do. It was those 4 people always make the final decision.
All right, so based on the fact that it's a group effort, I think you might glean that the owner is an amiable. He's willing to share responsibility, where a lot of small business owners are not. They're not willing to, it's sort of like I have the final say in everything. So I think that's good insight. What do you all think? Any questions or comments? All right, very good. So you have until midnight to submit those to the Dropbox. I want to watch a video. Did any of you watch the Akisi video by chance? Get on and just go ahead and look at that. And thinking about prospecting, this is one that brings up sort of an interesting way. We'll probably run out of time, so what I want you to do is, if you talk to me today, or if you participated, come up and I'll give you your points. Make sure you get here before I leave the classroom. This is, I think, a good video to watch in terms of how you can use social media and the power of the net to actually go about prospecting, but it's also frightening, and so it brings up some very interesting ethical issues as well. So this is a good example of how this all sort of integrates together. We didn't watch this before, did we?
I would like to tell you a story connecting the notorious privacy incident involving Adam and Eve and the remarkable shift in the boundaries between public and private, which has occurred in the past 10 years. You know the incident, Adam and Eve.
Alejandro, what'd you get on that test, bro? Did you see what you got on that test? 70? Same. Bro, I was proud of me. Hey, me too. No, the one we had in logistics. Like 60. Yeah, I don't know. Volume. No idea.
I would like to tell you a story connecting the notorious privacy incident involving Adam and Eve and the remarkable shift in the boundaries between public and private, which has occurred in the past 10 years. You know the incident, Adam and Eve, one day in the Garden of Eden, realize they are naked, they freak out, and the rest is history. Nowadays, Adam and Eve would probably act differently. We do reveal so much more information about ourselves online than ever before. So much information about us is being collected by organizations. Now, there is much to gain and benefit from this massive analysis of personal information or big data. But there are also complex trade-offs that come from giving away our privacy. And my story is about these trade-offs. We start with an observation, which in my mind has become clearer and clearer in the past few years, that any personal information can become sensitive information. Back in the year 2000, about 100 billion photos were shot worldwide, but only a minuscule proportion of them were actually uploaded online. In 2010, only on Facebook, in a single month, 2.5 billion photos were uploaded, most of them identified. In the same span of time, computers' ability to recognize people in photos improved by 3 orders of magnitude. What happens when you combine these technologies together? Increasing availability of facial data, improving facial recognizing ability by computers, but also cloud computing, which gives anyone in this theater the kind of computational power which a few years ago was only the domain of three-letter agencies. And ubiquitous computing, which allows my phone, which is not a supercomputer, to connect to the internet and do there hundreds of thousands of face matches in a few seconds. Well, we conjecture the result of this combination of technologies will be a radical change in our very notions of privacy and anonymity. To test that, we did an experiment on Carnegie Mellon University campus. We asked students who were walking by to participate in a study. And we took a shot with a webcam, and we asked them to fill out a survey on a laptop. While they were filling out the survey, we uploaded their shot to a cloud computing cluster, and we started using a facial recognizer to match that shot to a database of some hundreds of thousands of images which we had downloaded from Facebook profiles. By the time the subject reached the last page on the survey, the page had been dynamically updated with the 10 best matching photos which the recognizer had found. And we asked the subjects to indicate whether he or she found themselves in the photo. Do you see the subject? Well, the computer did, and in fact did so for 1 out of 3 subjects. So essentially, we can start from an anonymous face, offline or online, and we can use facial recognition to give a name to that anonymous face, thanks to social media data. But a few years back, we did something else. We started from social media data, we combined it statistically with data from US government social security, and we ended up predicting social security numbers, which in the United States are extremely sensitive information. Do you see where I'm going with this? So if you combine the 2 studies together, then the question becomes, can you start from a face? And using facial recognition, find a name and publicly available information about that name and that person. And from that publicly available information, infer non-publicly available information, much more sensitive ones, which you link back to the face. And the answer is yes, we can, and we did. Of course, the accuracy keeps getting worse. But in fact, we even decided to develop an iPhone app, which uses the phone internal camera to take a shot of a subject and then upload it to a cloud and then do what I just described to you in real time. Looking for a match, finding public information, trying to infer sensitive information, and then sending it back to the phone so that it is overlaid on the face of the subject. An example of augmented reality, probably a creepy example of augmented reality. In fact, we didn't develop the app to make it available, just as a proof of concept. In fact, take these technologies and push them to their logical extreme. Imagine a future in which strangers around you will look at you through their Google glasses or one day their contact lenses and use 7 or 8 data points about you to infer anything else which may be known about you. What will this future without secrets look like? And should we care? We may like to believe that the future with so much wealth of data will be a future with no more biases. But in fact, having so much information doesn't mean that we will make decisions which are more objective. In another experiment, we presented to our subjects information about a potential job candidate. We included in this information some references to some funny, absolutely legal, but perhaps slightly embarrassing information that the subject had posted online. Now, interestingly, among our subjects, some had posted comparable information, and some had not. Which group do you think was more likely to judge harshly our subject? Paradoxically, it was the group who had posted similar information, an example of moral dissonance. Now, you may be thinking, this does not apply to me because I have nothing to hide. But in fact, privacy is not about having something negative to hide. Imagine that you are the HR director of a certain organization and you receive resumes and you decide to find more information about the candidates, therefore you Google their names and in a certain universe you find this information. Or in a parallel universe, you find this information.
She's got a baby.
Do you think that you would be equally likely to call either candidate for an interview? If you think so, then you are not like the US employers who are in fact part of our experiment. Meaning we did exactly that. We created Facebook profiles, manipulating trades, and then we started sending out resumes to companies in the US. And we detected, we monitored whether they were searching for our candidates and whether they were reacting to the information they were finding on social media. And they were. Discrimination was happening through social media for equally skilled candidates. Now, marketers like us to believe that all information about us will always be used in a manner which is in our favor. But think again, why should that be always the case? In a movie which came out a few years ago, Minority Report, a famous scene had Tom Cruise walk in a mall and holographic, personalized advertising would appear around him. Now, that movie is set in 2054, about 40 years from now, and as exciting as the technology looks, it already vastly underestimates the amount of information that the organization can gather about you, and now they can use it to influence you in a way that you will not even detect. So, as an example, this is another experiment actually we are running, not yet completed. Imagine that an organization has access to your list of Facebook friends. And through some kind of algorithm, they can detect the 2 friends that you like the most. And then they create, in real time, a facial composite of these 2 friends. Now, studies prior to ours have shown that people don't recognize any longer, even themselves, in facial composites, but they react to those composites in a positive manner. So next time you are looking for a certain product and there is an ad suggesting you to buy it, it will not be just a standard spokesperson. It will be one of your friends. And you will not even know that this is happening. Now, the problem is that the current policy mechanisms we have to protect ourselves from the abusers of personal information are like bringing a knife to a gunfight. One of these mechanisms is transparency, telling people what you're going to do with their data. And in principle, that's a very good thing. It's necessary, but it is not sufficient. Transparency can be misdirected. You can tell people what you're going to do, and then you still nudge them to disclose arbitrary amounts of personal information. So in yet another experiment, this one with students, we asked them to provide information about their campus behavior, including pretty sensitive questions, such as this one. Now, to one group of subjects, we told them only other students will see your answers. To another group of subjects, we told them students and faculty will see your answers. Transparency, notification, and sure enough, this worked. In a sense, the first group of subjects were much more likely to disclose than the second. It makes sense, right? But then we added the misdirection. We repeated the experiment with the same 2 groups, this time adding a delay between the time we told subjects how we will use your data and the time we actually started answering the questions. How long a delay do you think we had to add in order to nullify the inhibitory effect of knowing that faculty will see your answers? 10 minutes? 5 minutes? 1 minute? How about 15 seconds? 15 seconds were sufficient to have the 2 groups disclose the same amount of information, as if the second group now no longer care for faculty reading their answers. Now, I have to admit that these talks so far may sound exceedingly gloomy, but that is not my point. In fact, I want to share with you the fact that there are alternatives. The way we are doing things now is not the only way they can be done, and certainly not the best way they can be done. When someone tells you people don't care about privacy, consider whether the game has been designed and rigged so that they cannot care about privacy. And coming to the realization that these manipulations occur is already halfway through the process of being able to protect yourself. When someone tells you that privacy is incompatible with the benefits of big data, consider that in the last 20 years, researchers have created technologies to allow virtually any electronic transactions to take place in a more privacy-preserving manner. We can browse the internet anonymously. We can send emails that can only be read by the intended recipient, not even the NSA. We can have even privacy-preserving data mining. In other words, we can have the benefits of big data while protecting privacy. Of course, these technologies imply a shifting of costs and revenues between data holders and data subjects, which is why perhaps you don't hear more about them. Which brings me back to the Garden of Eden. There is a second privacy interpretation of the story of the Garden of Eden, which doesn't have to do with the issue of Adam and Eve feeling naked and feeling ashamed. You can find echoes of this interpretation in John Milton's Paradise Lost. In the garden, Adam and Eve are materially content. They're happy, they're satisfied. However, they also lack knowledge and self-awareness. The moment they eat the aptly named fruit of knowledge, that's when they discover themselves. They become aware. They achieve autonomy. The price to pay, however, is leaving the garden. So privacy, in a way, is both the means and the price to pay for freedom. Again, marketers tell us that big data and social media are not just a paradise of profit for them, but a Garden of Eden for the rest of us. We get free content, we get to play Angry Birds, we get targeted ads. But in fact, in a few years, organizations will know so much about us that we'll be able to infer our desires before we even form them, and perhaps buy products on our behalf before we even know we need them. Now, there was one English author who anticipated this kind of future where we would trade away our autonomy and freedom for comfort. Even more so than George Orwell, the author is, of course, Aldous Huxley. In Brave New World, imagine a society where technologies that we created originally for freedom end up coercing us. However, in the book, he also offers us a way out of that society, similar to the path that Adam and Eve had to follow to leave the garden. In the words of the savage, regaining autonomy and freedom is possible, although the price to pay is steep. So, I do believe that one of the defining fights of our times will be the fight for the control over personal information. The fight over whether big data will become a force for freedom rather than a force which will hiddenly manipulate us. Right now, many of us do not even know that the fight is going on, but it is, whether you like it or not. And at the risk of playing the serpent, I will tell you that the tools for the fights are here, the awareness of what is going on, and in your hands, just a few clicks away. Thank you.
So I play that so that you can get an idea of how you can go about looking at prospecting. Of course, this is a very dark interpretation of that, but you can find so much information on your prospects out there that I think that it's worth considering. So I think you should think about, nobody or very few of you said that you went on social media to ascertain social styles. I think that's a really wealthy amount of information that you can get on researching your prospects and understanding what they're going to be receptive to in the future. And so that's the reason I show you this video. If you talked today and gave insight, please come up and get your points. Don't leave without it, otherwise I won't remember next time. And I will see you on today's Thursday, right? Tuesday.
I know your ways, remember?
You don't know none of my ways.
We went to the, and then, you and, what's his name, we're talking about y'all's ways.
That was him, not me.
Yo, that was you.
That was him, not me. class and then go right back down there? That's a smart one. Don't get no tangles.
He has a really bad habit, like, Why? He like forgets his driver's license. I'm like, and he works at this tire, like, oh,
You grew up country, didn't you?
Huh?
You grew up country, didn't you?
Yeah, why? Oh, yeah, the looping it.
Yeah.
It actually works a lot better with longer. That one's pretty short. So I was just rolling it, but it kept getting tangled up, so.
but that last. Can I help you? Right, he's gonna have to give and that's the thing, is what are we next?
$150.
So, you're way ahead.
I have to get that because I can wait.
Like, I got
No, you can't do that, you can't do that. You're gonna fall asleep or you're not gonna wake up.
I know, yeah. I don't want to go below that. It's just your box, so.
Oh, I know, it's just.
So that's